was the kid who couldn't sit still in class, made countless trips to the principal's office, dropped out of school in sixth grade, and eventually made it to the Ivy League at Brown University. While at Brown, he started Project Eye to Eye, a mentoring and advocacy nonprofit for students with learning differences. At 23, he wrote his first book, Learning Outside the Lines, then his second book, The Short Bus, and now the third book, Normal Sucks. The latest book is written to his three sons, who are 8, 10, and 12, or are they a little older now?
No, that's about right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And we're gonna find out ways to rethink normal, the power in celebrating differences, and how to compensate for weaknesses. But first, as we were just saying a few minutes ago, Jonathan, normal sucked all your life growing up, but I think kids today are kind of missing normal right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting how we use that word, and even in sort of the public conversation around, hey, when do we get back to normal? When do we, what's the new normal? All of that sort of public discourse stuff. Why I understand it and why I use the word myself in talking about where I hope things get to and where I hope we go. For a whole bunch of people who have been called abnormal, because they have atypical brains or bodies, or didn't fit the parameters of the norms applied within educational or social settings, that's a pretty toxic word, even today. What I try to reframe as is we are aspiring to some stability. I think kids want stability. I think young folks want consistency. They want safety, and they want to go back to a social life, right, and a social reality. Yes. And I will say that there are some young folks, not all, but many, for whom this break from the norm of school is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to think differently about themselves as learners, to reset some relationships. And so there are some young folks who this new normal could be good for. That's not to negate the challenge. It's not to negate how hard it is for all of us involved, but it is to silver lining a little bit and to put on optimistic thinking and to apply that to our life, to look at what we can do in this moment that we're stuck in.
Right. And just to give them some space, right? Space to grow and to be with themselves and to realize that it's okay. Because I think life was getting to be a pretty heavy pressure cooker, wouldn't you say? Like just going from activity to activity and running around and making sure you get all your homework done and being the kid in class that everyone wants you to be, as that's really hard, right?
Yeah, this was an opportunity, one could say wake-up call for me, and I'm speaking personally within our own family structure, to ask myself, what's the status of my relationship with my children, and to think about, was I connecting, was I present, or was I just shuttling people between activities?
Right.
and what did I lose in that? And it's an opportunity to reset on some of that stuff, and to elevate above the day-to-day, because when you're in that day-to-day, when you're in that norm, where that's what everybody else is doing and that's what's expected, it's hard to resist that sort of social pressure. And so this is an opportunity to reflect on what really matters, what matters in our relationship with our children, our partners, and can we sort of come out this on the other end with a reset of values as it pertains to how we use children's time. Young folks across the age continuum, as you rightfully noted, Julie, are overscheduled.
Even for myself, I'm thinking, okay, what are the activities that are most important to you as a child, to me as a parent, and do we need all of them, right? Do we need to be running just running constantly in this wheel. But let's move on to okay, so you're watching your kids do this online education, or, I mean, different schools are doing different things. What are your thoughts on the Zoom versus videos versus, less or more on just the interaction by video conferencing?
I mean, I personally never want to be on another Zoom call in in my life, like.
Oh, good. So good thing we did Instagram instead of Zoom, right?
There you go. And I think I'm not alone in that. And so if you own some Zoom stock, when it's all said and done, you might want to short it, because there's definitely a deep fatigue around that. In all seriousness, as I try to elevate out of it, I think that we are learning two things as a society, or at least I'm learning it as a parent and as an advocate. One, we're learning a little bit about the emperor having no clothes, in the sense that, there are some schools in which the entire school offering, now that it's in a truncated, stripped down way, takes 30 minutes, takes an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to ask ourselves, what were we doing with our time?
Right.
What was actually happening? And I think that that's a really important takeaway that we should hold on and thread forward. The second thing that I think we're learning is that we have not figured out how to leverage the powerful technological tools that are at our disposal to facilitate sort of true, authentic learning. We can use them to disseminate content, a Zoom call or a Khan Academy class. But the research is not really positive about retaining information when all we do is disseminate it. Right. So I think the challenge that we have is, in a blended learning world, because I do think we're going to face a blended learning world more and more in schools, especially public systems. How do we use these tools as a way to spark interest, passion, purpose-based learning that is not happening all the time on a digital platform? So that's going to be sort of our challenge. I wish I had a solution to that challenge. I don't, but I think naming that challenge so we can collectively think about what a solution could be is the first and the most important step.
Yeah. I see my youngest daughter in elementary school, get really tired of just watching the videos and watching the teacher talk at her, and not, sometimes there are questions, but you can't ask the questions because it's not a back and forth. It's not even a Zoom call, right? And so she gets really frustrated, but there's also this sense of loneliness that you mentioned. They need that socialization and they need their peers. So what I suggested was, okay, maybe we can get a friend or a few friends together, and maybe you can together on FaceTime or in some video way do a project, like you all do something together. But then again, that's as far as I go, because I'm not that creative. Otherwise I would have invented it. But where are those projects out there, Jonathan? I mean, somebody must have developed a way for kids to connect by doing things in their own homes, but then coming to a solution together, right?
Yeah. It's very astute, Julie. I have to say, the most powerful learning that's happened in the 6 weeks, 8 weeks that we've been doing this in my house is a paper airplane project that me and my youngest son are doing. Watch a YouTube video on how to make it, have multiple metrics, study it, modify it, study it again, write about it, do the average distance, all of this wound up together. And I just made it up, pure desperation. And I'm in search of that resource, a resource that is a online catalyst that facilitates offline learning and then collaboration on the other end. So I can tell you, in searching on this mission, I found a really powerful tool that I think could be relevant to you, to your folks here. And it's interesting. It's a local shop originally based in Pasadena, and it's an online platform called Thrively. So, and Thrively, like the word thrive, Ly, Thrively, and it has over 100 ready-made projects that have all of the learning resources attached to them, meaning the YouTube video about the airplane, the question to ask your kid. It then has a collaboration tool where multiple kids can work on the same project together and come back and take pictures and share and talk and answer questions. So it's a very powerful thing. It's taken my paper airplane project to a whole nother level. So it's Thrively, Thrive Ly, and you can find it online.
I will look for it. And they just have all kinds of different projects. They're not like specific to like science or just all
No,
the whole
100 projects that are state standard aligned, that align with next generation science standards, humanities standards, all interdisciplinary, and all facilitated, meaning you don't got to go find that YouTube link. It's already there. And excellent. The questions to ask. And
that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm glad I asked the question.
Well, I'm happy that I had an answer for you, because it's rare. Usually my answer is I have no idea nowadays.
That's not true. You have such a wealth of information that I want to next go to. You posted on social media recently that the Santa Monica Unified School District will be starting, I think this next year, personalized project learning path. Talk about pathways and why, you know, they're potentially the way of the future, why they might be important, how they help kids.
Yeah, first of all, just a quick shout out to the folks at Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District, public school district, took it upon themselves, the superintendent, Dr. Vendrati, to embed project-based experiential learning as a core pedagogical value, with the idea of engaging all students in a new way. And there's not many public schools that are doing that. So I want to recognize them and celebrate them. Here's the thing about pathway work, because I've been involved in that pretty much for the past 20 years, educationally, and then outside in the career pathway world. And I do that work because, you know, for me in my own story, the story you alluded to in my introduction, you know, my path forward from being the kid who spent all day long hanging out with the janitor in the hallway, not learning to read until I was 12, my path forward wasn't about fixing my problems. It was about finding my interests and building on my strengths. And my educational renaissance happened only in academic learning environments that valued my interests, my talents, and helped me build a learning pathway around that. And I'm not alone in the efficacy of that. All sorts of macro level studies show that when a young person is doing interest-based hands-on learning, they do better. Whether that young person was struggling in traditional school or whether that young person was thriving in traditional school, everyone benefits from that approach. So I'm an evangelist for that, an advocate for that. It's a better way to learn, and it better prepares every young person for a rapidly changing job market. It better prepares folks to be successful in the 21st century and beyond.
It sparks their engagement and their passion, right? So they get excited about being there as opposed to being bored and just wanting to fall asleep and just race out of the classroom.
You know, the Gallup organization, which is a polling organization, most of us know Gallup through polling around the political races. They do an annual student engagement survey. They've been doing it for 60 years or so. And the last time they did the survey, a year ago, student engagement in the United States was the lowest it's ever been. The number one word used to describe school by kids is boring.
Yep. I was just thinking that is what I hear my oldest daughter say every day. Every day. It's so boring.
It just doesn't have to be that way. And so, you know, this moment of time where we can see what's really happening and how little time is needed to disseminate content, we should be going back when uh, these conditions lift, and we should be advocating for not just disseminating content, but we should be advocating for experiential learning for all kids. And even in a blended learning or distance learning environment, there are tools like Thrively out there that can help us do that at home. And we need a movement around that, because it really is the future of education.
That's right. So you talk about the real importance of empowering kids to succeed, like you're just talking about now, and you're saying, you know, there needs to be a movement and we need to push for that. But as a parent, as an advocate, you know, you've spent your whole life advocating for these things. And I know in my own public school district, it's really hard because you're sometimes met with a lot of, you know, what is it? Defense on the other side, right? Or I guess they're defending themselves. So how do you like get over that? How do you help the education structure or the people or the faculty at those schools have an open mind and see that what we're advocating for is better for everyone?
Yeah, you know, the art of advocacy, and it is really an art. You know, my mom was my biggest advocate in my life.
Yes.
You know, she was like a 4'9", you know, Irish woman, had a high-pitched voice like Minnie Mouse, and she cursed like a truck driver. And if you were a principal, you did not want, you know, cursing Minnie Mouse in your office, you know, but that's where she was, you know, and being a good advocate starts with advocating, you know, like it's one of those things.
Like actually speaking up and
yes,
like
and
letting your voice be heard. And a lot of people don't and won't do that out of fear or whatever it is.
Yeah, whether I don't care how it comes out, whether you're articulate or not. The first step towards being an advocate is to be an advocate for something, for someone, for something that you care about. And so that's a really hopeful thing, because you don't got to go to school for it. You don't have to study it. You just got to listen to it. You do it. You just got to do it. And you got to listen to your heart and your soul and follow what you're passionate about. Now, with that said, to your question, once we take that first step, you know, chill out a little bit on the F-bombs, you know what I mean? Like probably not the first thing you should say, you know,
right?
Maybe the second, I don't know, but so, you know, there are skill sets to use, and one of the things my mom modeled for me, because she believed it deeply in her heart about all people, is when my mom would advocate for me, or eventually other kids, or education writ large, she would always start with what the teacher, principal, school was doing right. You know, because nobody likes to hear what they're doing wrong. And more importantly, that's just not how to be a good human, you know, to focus on what's wrong with everybody. So my mom would always start with, you know, what was right. And that sets a better tone, you know. Right. She would then go and, you know, talk about what wasn't working, you know. And then this is really important. She would provide suggestions for solutions. Because, you know, nobody wants to hear what's not working and then feel like there's no path forward. Right. And those suggestions can be offerings and catalysts for dialogue. But I found that to be a really effective model to be an advocate. You know, talk about what's right with folks, is not working, and then provide some solutions. And if that doesn't work, you always got the F-bomb at your disposal. So you can always go back to that.
And hopefully that'll make the change you're looking for immediately. No, that's great advice. What advice do you have for parents whose kids do have weaknesses and maybe the teachers or the school can't handle that? What can a parent do to really help their child and help them, see a good outcome?
A couple pieces of advice on that. So first, and this is a little off point, but I gotta say it. The path forward for a kid like me, kid who struggles in school, is to flip the deficit script. When you're a kid who struggles, it's a deficit model around you. Jonathan can't sit still, Jonathan can't spell, Jonathan can't write, Jonathan can't read. But it's demoralizing to be told what you can't do all the time. And we got to
and you start to believe it, even though it's really not true. Like, there are good things in everyone.
In everybody, but you're right. It gets in your head and you start to develop a debased learning identity and sense of self.
Sorry. And so how did your mom, like, early on, did she see that was happening? And at home, would she give you much more positive self-talk?
Yeah, she saw it early on. She saw it in school. She course corrected at home. She course corrected with her rhetoric, the way she talked to me, the way she named it. But more importantly, she course corrected with our time. And let me explain that. We've gotten a little bit good at talking about how all kids are different. We're all special snowflakes. That's what everyone's told in kindergarten. And then the bell rings and it turns into, now sit your special snowflake ass down and take the standardized test. So our rhetoric and our practice is miles apart. So what my mom would do is every Friday was spelling test day when I was in school, right? What a wonderful way to end the week, like spelling test day. And I would spend all week trying to fix my spelling. We would do flashcards. I'd draw the words in the sand. I'd build the words with blocks. I would do interpretive dance to get the words in, And every Friday I failed the test. But this one Friday, my mom decided that we would ditch school and go to the zoo instead because I loved animals. And she called it Get Good at Something Day. And so every Friday we did something that I cared about, that I was interested in, that I was good at. And that investment of time was far more important than the investment of words. The investment of words mattered, right? But at some point with kids, if you're not walking the talk is irrelevant.
Right.
So that investment in time. So look, I know many parents now with young folks like me at home are struggling with messages from school that they should be working on the weaknesses of their kids, that their job is now to remediate the spelling, the reading, get the phonics up, all that stuff. And I'll tell you, I think this is an opportunity for many families to flip the script and to say, we're going to use this time to find out what you really care about and are really good at. And then we're going to invest in it. And you're not going to be the kid who can't read. You're going to be the kid who can build, who can draw, who can talk. And that's going to be the core of your identity that we move forward with. And that's it. That is the game right there. If you can flip that script and that switch goes off, a young person is on a path to a different future and to a better future.
One more question. Since school was so hard in the young years, how did you, I would imagine that when school is that hard and you don't learn to read until you're 12 years old, in your mind, you're like, why would I go to college? I'm not going to do that. But yet you not only went to college, but you went to Brown University. So and you were going to the zoo and you were doing fun things. So how did that all come together?
Yeah, a couple things about my journey to higher education. You know, I'll answer the question personally, but I want to reflect at a higher level first. You know, I take a lot of issue with this college or die culture that we have. You know, we have built a narrative for at least the past 20 years, but I think much longer, since the mid 80s when a report called A Nation at Risk came out. And it was a report that catastrophized educational outcomes in America, prioritized college pathways. And we've essentially told young folks, if you don't go to college, you're a failure. And subsequently, we de-invested from any other educational offerings in most of public schools. You know, the state of California, where I live, where you live, decreased funding for CTE programs,
Right.
career technical programs, from 2000 to 2015 by over 80%. So there was no place for the hands-on learner.
Right.
There was no place for the project-based pathway work we're talking about.
And those were my favorite classes, like the radio production class, the interior design class. I couldn't understand why all the classes weren't those.
Exactly right. And I can tell the interior design by your beautiful bookshelf in the back. Well done.
Thank you. I just
the,
moved. Today's my new day, my new first day with this bookshelf. So thank you.
Well, you're rocking it. This college or die thing has been such a mistake. It's led to so much shame, and it's led people not having a chance to figure out what pathway is right for them. So my journey to higher education was, first of all, really limping through high school. There's no other way to say it. You know, I had a number of really powerful educators who believed in me, who saw my talents, who accommodated my differences, and then I had a number who didn't. And when I was in the classroom with people who accommodated my differences with, you know, books on tape and time extensions, I did well. And when I was in classrooms that didn't, I didn't. And I really got through high school because I wanted to be a soccer player. You know, I was a good soccer player. My dream was to play Division I soccer. And I did. And I played here in Los Angeles at Lowell Marymount University. Right. But when I got to LMU, you know, I had a little renaissance in my sense of self. I advocated for myself as a learner for the first time in my life. And I went deep into my passion for literature. I took no classes other than literature classes. That's not what you're supposed to do at LMU as a freshman or sophomore. And I did very well, and I decided to transfer. And I got to Brown University because it's a place where you design your own pathway. There are no core requirements. You can do independent study. You can bring your passion projects into your education. And that's what I did. So I found the right ecosystem or niche for the way that I learned. That's right for me. That's not right for everybody. Right. And the point is for all of us to figure out the match between somebody's interests, aspirations, and learning style, and find a pathway for them. That pathway could be college. That pathway could be an internship. Nowadays, Google's workforce, over 30% do not have a traditional college degree, 30% of Google's workforce. So there's all sorts of different ways. That's the good news. That's something we should celebrate, that there's a pathway out there for every kid if we invest finding out what they're good at, knowing their interests, and knowing them deeply and empowering them to create a pathway that's right for them.
That's great advice, and it's so true, and a good reminder, because I think that for so many of us, me included, it's like, of course you go to college, of course you go to high school, and then you go straight on to university, and you try to get into the best university you can, and it's like, but why? Like, if there could be another path. And I think it's becoming a little more common to do this gap year or to kind of explore what the possibilities could be out there. But I think this time is definitely giving people time to explore that. And hopefully people are using that time instead of what my kids are doing is, oh, they've found all kinds of video games. Gaming is becoming a thing in my house. And I have 3 girls, so gaming wasn't a thing. I'm like, no gaming. But, and you already touched on this. You mentioned that you and your son, one of your sons, is making airplanes and doing all this work with paper airplanes, which is great. But just final question is there anything that you have discovered during this extra time with quarantine that you are newly passionate about that either you're doing or you're doing as a family?
I mean, we're fighting as a family, so I mean, I guess.
But is that new? Aren't we always doing that?
That's not new. Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, we've taken it to a. I mean, we've built
that's just more. It's just exponentially greater, right?
We've built an actual boxing ring, you know, and you know we're gonna take it to the real. If we're gonna do it, we might as well do it right, Julie. You know, what I've tried to recenter around in this time, and it's not new, but it feels like I am rediscovering it anew, is just the power of relationships and the centrality of that to human existence, in our own family circle, in learning. You know, there is no learning without a relationship, period. And we have to hold on to that as we move forward into the unknown of this learning environment and learning ecosystem. We have to nurture those. It's not about content, it's about connection. And also, it's the importance of relationships moving forward. And as we think about public policy, I think we are going to face a moment as advocates who care about children. We're going to face a set of public policies that are discriminating against kids moving forward. You know, the idea of an indefinite school closure when the vast majority of cases of COVID-19 do not affect children is a challenge and a problem. When we think about public policies like in my city in Santa Monica that have closed the parks, that's a deficit to child well-being. So we're going to have to start thinking about, as we get through this moment of crisis, what does it mean for us to be advocates for the child's relationship with other children and for their overarching well-being? And we'll have a lot of work to do ahead, and we'll do it together.
That's right. Those are really good points. Thank you for highlighting those. The kids are the future, and we have to advocate for them, all of us. Whether we have the kids or not, whether they're grown or not, we all need to advocate for all of our future, right?
That's right.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be on here with you, and to everyone who watched, thanks for joining Jonathan and I. For more information on Jonathan, you can go to jonathanmooney.com. I love your website. I love all the projects you're involved with. So I hope people will join you and get involved and learn more about all that you're doing. Thanks for being with us.
Big fan, Julie. Thanks so much for having me as always.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.